Hello. Another Sunday, another. Let me fix this. I don't know how to fix this. Should I do this? Yes. Too much light? Better. So, hello. Some of you who are my watchers, I'm Vibhat, and another Sunday, another reaction. As you can see in the thumbnail, आप thumbnail में देख रहे होंगे. Uh, why I am not an atheist anymore, right? Some hateful comments on my Javed Akhtar reaction. Javed Akhtar destroying Jaggi Vasudev and Jaggi Vasudev fans got butthurt. So, oh, so people are, right, left, and center calling me an fucking atheist. I'm not an atheist. Okay, I'm not an atheist. What am I? Let's find out. So let's first start the video. I would like to start the video with this. ये देखो भाई, ये है भाई, ये ये है भाई. मैंने परमिशन ले ली है
विवेक
ये
आप गए नहीं?
अपने चैनल पे चलाने की. बट आई होप शी डजंट माइंड, है ना.
सर वो
एंड डेफिनेटली डजंट
बेटी
माइंड.
का
राम को दे
ये सुनो भाई, हिपोक्रेट लग सकता है that I was the one who made a video on how Sadhguru got destroyed and all that. But yeah, I nowadays I listen to this a lot every morning. Don't look at the girl, look at what she's singing. She's singing something wonderful. I don't care if Ram, Sita happened or not. It's just beautiful.
देख कर श्री जनक नंदनी राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदनी बाग में जा खड़ी रह गई राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदनी राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदनी बाग में जा खड़ी रह गई राम देखे सिया माँ सिया राम को राम देखे सिया माँ सिया राम को चारों अखियाँ लड़ी रह गई राम.
यही रुक जाओ. This is love at first sight, isn't it? This is love at first sight. राम देखे सिया, माँ सिया राम को. This is wonderful, isn't it?
को देख कर थे जनकपुर गए देखने के लिए थे जनकपुर गए देखने के लिए सारी सखियाँ झरोखन से झांकन लगी सारी सखियाँ झरोखन से झांकन लगी देखते नजर मिल गई दोनों की देखते नजर मिल गई दोनों की जो जहाँ थी खड़ी रह गई राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदनी राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदनी बाग में जा खड़ी रह गई राम को देख कर बोली है एक सखी राम को देख कर बोली है एक सखी राम को देख कर रच दिए हैं विधाता ने जोड़ी सुघर रच दिए हैं विधाता ने जोड़ी सुघर भर पर धनुष कैसे पर धनुष कैसे तोड़ेंगे वारे कुंवर पर धनुष कैसे तोड़ेंगे वारे कुंवर सब में शंका बनी की बनी रह गई राम को दे
Damn, damn. Just, just, just think about it. The women already likes him, Ram, and they don't care about competition anymore. They think, okay, this is perfect. They are perfect match for each other. But now, how will they? How will he'll do the, you know, धनुष कैसे तोड़ेंगे वारे कुंवर? You know. So, so when a girl likes a guy, uh, competence and masculinity takes a background. It doesn't. She doesn't care. She doesn't care if she can break the dhanush and all, but she has to care because that is the rule, right? That is the swayamvar ki shart, right? This is wonderful. I don't care if this is fiction or a fact. I just care. This is so beautiful, right? This is the most beautiful love story I ever, you know, heard someone singing. तो मुझे तो भजन बहुत अच्छे लगते हैं भाई. Do you know any atheist who likes bhajan and all?
देख कर श्री जनक नंदिनी बाग में जा खड़ी की खड़ी रह गई राम को देख कर बोली दूजन सखी चोट देखन में है बोली दूजन सखी चोट देखन में है पर चमत्कार इनका नहीं जानती पर चमत्कार इनका नहीं जानती एक ही बाण से एक ही बाण से ताड़का राक्षसी एक ही बाण से ताड़का राक्षसी उठ सकी ना पड़ी की पड़ी रह गई राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदिनी राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदिनी बाग में जा खड़ी की खड़ी रह गई राम देखे सिया माँ सिया राम को राम देखे सिया माँ सिया राम को चारों अखियाँ लड़ी की लड़ी रह गई राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदिनी राम को देख कर श्री जनक नंदिनी बाग में जा खड़ी की खड़ी रह गई बाग में जा खड़ी की खड़ी रह गई.
So the YouTube channel's name is Zendria, and I heard her just some days back, and it's wonderful. Check out her channel. Of course, she has more subscribers than me, so hope she doesn't give me a copyright strike. And please don't give me a copyright strike. I'm just a fan of your singing skills and Ram and Sia love story, dude. They're not God to me, but they are an ideal couple, I guess. Right. So coming back to our today's motto, you know. So I said I am no longer an atheist, right? Why I am no longer an atheist? So the answer to this question is this video. I saw this video, and this gives you a new perspective to look at these things: religion, spirituality, atheism, believing in God, not believing in God, so on, right? Let's have a watch. It is a talk by Dr. Salman Akhtar, psychoanalyst, which our channel is familiar with, brother of Javed Akhtar, and He is giving a talk in Boston University regarding spirituality and religion. So I'll start, and I'll start the fan also.
Thank you, Dr. Stavros, for having me here. It's good to be
Yes.
here. I'm so pleased that Nancy McWilliams is here. And you asked me to say something a little personal before going into the main topic.
Okay.
Religion and spirituality to me has been sort of like New Mexico. It's a place that I love to go, but I'm afraid of going because I fear I will never return. You know, that is really the case. I mean, I have been to New Mexico once, and I got so frightened that I'll never come back. Uh, uh, Peru, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, Chile. These are places that I yearn to go, and I have been, and dread to go also because I'm always afraid that I'm not coming back. Same thing sort of applies to religion and spirituality. I was born in a Muslim family, but it was it was a religious minority.
So of course we will on the way we'll be making notes and taking notes. And जहाँ मुझे कुछ बोलना होगा, I'll speak. So till now he is just describing his relations to religion and spirituality and how he is born and brought up in a Indian Muslim family and play.
In India, about 80% people in India are Hindus, about 12-14% are Muslims. So, and the remaining Christian, Jews, Buddhists, Sikhs, Jains, etc. So it was a religious minority, a big minority. On the other hand, there was not much religion in the house. My father actually was a vehement and vocal and rabid atheist. And
Yeah. So I was once a vocal, vehement, and rabid atheist, which I am not right now, which I have refused to become, unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know.
taught us from childhood that there's no such thing as God and only stupid people believe in God. My mother was a Hindu wannabe. She was desperately trying to be somehow become a Hindu so that she'll put the red dot on her forehead, which no Muslim woman was supposed to do, red color in her parting, and she even had some gods, statues, etc., at home. And my grandfather was a devout Muslim. So that really, as you can say, messed me up totally. Uh, you know. Then two other influences happened. One was that I was exposed to four very important deaths as a child. At age 4, at 6.5, and 9, and 10.5.
You can imagine this kind of person can go on to become a mental doctor, not a patient. He can become a patient also, but also a doctor, right? Three different religious beliefs in a single family and four deaths before turning 10. That's huge. That's huge. इससे बड़ा तो मतलब uh, okay, good, good, not good actually, but yeah, go on.
Four people that I deeply loved died. And I think that not only the death itself, but the rituals around death and the burial, I was present at all burials. I think that created some kind of unresolved intrigue, mystery about life and death, and about questions that always remain floating, needing answers and yet causing dread. On top of that, I was growing up in a country, India, where any child who's born, the moment the child breathes, three things go into the child. One is Bollywood, second is tuberculosis, and third is God. So these three things, it's impossible to avoid. If you're Indian, you have to, a believer. So so I actually believe that Indian people are Hindus, Hindu Muslims, Hindu Christians, Hindu Jews, Hindu Sikhs. The Hinduism is like tuberculosis. It goes in you. It goes in you. You cannot go get a haircut without looking at God's pictures. And all these, many of them.
Quote of the day: Hinduism is like tuberculosis. You cannot escape being a Hindu. You know, something that we will refer at the end of the video. It is like a tuberculosis. You cannot escape.
Very buxom goddesses. So you're getting haircut, getting haircut and looking at the breasts of all these goddesses. You know,
Damn.
so obviously it also causes Oedipal fixation, as you can imagine. So with this kind of background, what ended up happening was really, in all candor, in all honesty, what ended up happening was that it left a sort of faith hunger inside of me, a hunger for.
So faith hunger is a keyword. This is a keyword that we should keep in mind if we want to understand the situation better. Okay.
Some kind of organizing system to believe in, a faith hunger, uh, which is the term that I coined last night before going to sleep, or maybe in sleep, who knows, that kind of faith hunger in which that a part of me wanted to know how things begin, how things are related, how things end up, and so on and so forth. So it made me write a dictionary of psychoanalysis, made me memorize all poets in my mother tongue, made me know in psychoanalysis.
Interesting. This faith hunger, the hunger for an organizational system, makes man to make an organization of the work that he does. Isn't it interesting that the hunger for a creator makes you a creator? Isn't it amazing that you want to believe in God, and that's make you God of something. You have created something, right? He created a dictionary of psychoanalysis, very difficult to pirate and download. So, and it's very costly, so I cannot buy it. You know, one day I will be able to buy it, and yeah. So this is faith hunger leading to creation. Creativity.
Who is after whom, etc., etc., etc. Kind of an organizing system. And for a while, Kernberg addiction. That's another condition,
Another.
that I've described. People buy Otto Kernberg's book. Nobody reads them. They're just, they're just for buying, especially the early books. So I went through Kernberg addiction. Yeah.
So the Kernberg addiction is an addiction. I don't know much about it, but it is sort of like an addiction which can never be satisfied. It is like the Lacanian objet piti a, or object cause of desire, that or in Hinduism what we call Krishna, or Kam Vasana. It can never be satisfied. So Kernberg addiction is an addiction of organization. I don't know, some addiction that cannot be satisfied.
Technical difficulty.
Of
Yeah.
technical difficulty.
Okay. That So I went through a bit of Kernberg addiction. I went through deep involvement with the history of Urdu poetry, and I went then into psychoanalysis and idolized, IDOLI, idolized and idealized psychoanalysis. And then bit by bit, I began to realize that there were a bunch of things that were not in psychoanalysis. So went through a crisis of faith, thinking, will I have to leave psychoanalysis, or should I bring those things into psychoanalysis, such as India, such as China, such as Japan, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, such as animals, such as things, physical objects, and so on and so forth. So I decided to stay put in psychoanalysis and try to expand and bring into psychoanalysis what psychoanalysis did not have. Now, as far as religion and spirituality is concerned, psychoanalysis was also of not help. Although I had turned psychoanalysis into religion for myself for a while, and Freud and Kernberg into God, and Melanie Klein into goddess, but it didn't work in the end. In the end, I had to deal with myself.
Similarly, in atheism, I also turned for once in a while for to Karl Marx as my god and Freud as my god, but it didn't work actually. So for some time, Richard Dawkins also. But yeah, but there's the difference between the atheism of Richard Dawkins and the atheism of Karl Marx. In some other video, I'll explain that. तो मैं बताऊंगा कार्ल मार्क्स का एथिज्म अलग है, नास्तिकता अलग है, और रिचर्ड डॉकिंस की नास्तिकता अलग है. कितनी अजीब बात है कि आप नहीं बोल रहे हैं, आप किसी चीज को मना कर रहे हैं कि ये नहीं होता है, और वो नहीं बोलने का तरीका ही अलग है दोनों का. रिचर्ड डॉकिंस एथिज्म अलग तरीका है ना बोलने का, और कार्ल मार्क्स का तरीका अलग है ना बोलने का.
you know. And I think that the solution then became was that I began to think and read, and it dawned upon me that there are certain areas, and it is only so far. I mean, I have about 900 more weekends to live, right? So as a result, I
900 weekends are too much, isn't it? Sorry. No. May God make him live longer. नहीं भाई, आप जियो भाई, आपने इतना सिखाया यार. साइको एनालिसिस भाई, 900 वीक भाई, 900 वीक यानी कितने महीने? सो इट्स 4 जाए 8, 4 जाए 8, कितने जाए? Wait. Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. Yeah, so 900 weeks is actually 225 months, and 225 months is how much? It's 18 more years. Huh? He is pretty optimistic. Okay, he is reasonable also. He is not very optimistic. He is reasonable. 18 years, yeah.
perhaps will change more and think more. But so far, what has come to me is that there are 5 questions that human beings cannot answer, and they better stop attempting to answer. Because I'm a believer also in defeat. I'm a believer in victory, but I'm also a believer in defeat. There's beauty in both. So as a result, I think that 5.
Another quote of the day: believe not only in victory but also in defeat. Right? 5 questions humans can't answer. Yes.
Questions to me are unanswerable. And one is, am I masculine or am I feminine? I think that's one question. Second, am I active or am I passive? Third, am I homosexual or am I heterosexual? Fourth, will I die actually and be done with and finished and gone, bye bye? Or am I somehow hanging around like lovely bones, or like in heaven or hell or in reincarnation coming back as a German shepherd or some such thing? That is if you're lucky. So am I really dead and done for, or am I somehow hanging out? And finally, is there a God or is there no God? I don't think these things are solvable. I think all human beings are homosexual and heterosexual, active and passive, masculine and feminine, will die and will not die, and believe in God and do not believe in God. I think that to force this matter into some kind of closure is defensive and arrogant. I think this.
Exactly. So the word that he used is closure. Closure is an important key term to understand. That we want closure. We as human beings, our escape from curiosity is closure. जब हम किसी चीज के बारे में जिज्ञासु होते हैं, क्यूरियस होते हैं, सवाल पूछते हैं, तो हमको जवाब चाहिए होता है जल्दी से जल्दी. ठीक है, तो उसमें जल्दी से कोई जवाब मिल जाए. हाँ ईश्वर है, हाँ है, ठीक है. ईश्वर नहीं है, हाँ नहीं है, ठीक है. ये जो बीच में अटका हुआ है ना कि नहीं पता है, ठीक है, और पता नहीं कर सकते हैं, ये तकलीफ देता है. ठीक है, तो कांट यू रिमेन एम्बिवेलेंट, good with both ideas, है भी तो ठीक, नहीं भी तो ठीक, right? That's what he is preaching. Any other thing other than ambivalence is an attempt to closure and a defense and an aggression and an arrogant stance. That's what he's saying.
These are questions where we have to accept defeat. Now, with this kind of my personal situation, let me move on to something. See, it became clear to me as I practiced psychotherapy and psychoanalysis, and as I read, and as I idealized and de-idealized various writers in the field, and various analysts, and my own analysts, etc., that and as it would happen, with the exposure to four important deaths in childhood, my analyst also died in the middle of analysis. So that when it rains, it pours. So what happens is that I began to think that there's something about the activities of the analyst in the clinical situation, such as talking. And there's a lot of literature about that, lot of literature. Various kinds of talkings, clarification, confrontation, interpretation, transference interpretation, genetic interpretation, reconstruction, construction, affirmative interventions. I mean, there are a huge number of interventions, right?
So these are terms of psychoanalysis which we will learn in our you know upcoming series of primer to psychoanalysis. We are learning psychoanalysis from the same guy, Dr. Salman Akhtar. We have watched first lecture and there are 9 more lectures to go, 9 more weekends, and we'll be done with all these terms. So don't be confused. Confused मत होइए अगर आपको ये बात समझ नहीं आ रही है आने वाले वक्त में we will understand. The main point that he is making is not this, something else.
Lot of literature. There's less literature on listening, which is horrible, and a friend of mine, psychoanalyst from Brazil, says it the best. Leopold Nozek. He says we can imagine a mute analyst, but we cannot imagine a deaf analyst. So that hearing and listening is the primary work, and psychoanalysis, as Anna O had said, is a talking cure, but actually is more of a listening cure. So that Ted Jacobs has written some, Evelyn Schreiber from this city has written some, and there is some literature on listening, but not pulled together. I just published a book which just came out 2 days ago. I had only one copy, and I didn't bring it because I was dreading that if I brought that copy, I'll give it to you. And that's the only copy I had. No, really, and that's the only copy I had. But once my copies come, I'll mail one to you. A whole book on listening. A book is called Psychoanalytic Listening. Methods, limits, and innovations. But besides the talking activities of the doctor and the patient, and besides the listening activities of the doctor and the patient, various kinds of listening. There are 4 kinds of listening: objective listening, subjective listening, intersubjective listening, and empathic listening. And each of them have something to do with each other and something different from each other, and so on and so forth. Besides this talking and listening, there is also being. And that is how one is when one is with the patient. What is the attitude one brings to the situation? And that began to preoccupy me, because in that attitude were hidden certain spiritual and religious elements, I think. So I thought about it, and it turned to me that while the list is certainly not exclusive, that there were 3 attitudes of a real cool psychotherapist, which caught my attention. And those 3 attitudes were: number 1, survival. Number 2, vision. And number 3, faith. Survival, vision, and faith. Now, in these 3 attitudes, the way I conceptualize it, that in each 3, what I will tell you is that, let's take for each of them, I'll tell you a visual image so you can remember the attitude, see the picture of it.
So he is now talking about 3 attitudes that an analyst should have in order to be a good analyst. First is survival, second is vision, and third is faith. Okay. When he talks about faith, then he comes back to spirituality. So you have to wait till then, and then we will take up the discussion that how I am related to this talk and how I became a believer again from being atheist. First reason was the faith hunger that he mentioned, and that was in me also. I'm brought up in a highly orthodox Hindu family, and the faith hunger continues, right?
Told you I came from India. There are always gods everywhere around. So the visual business is very important. Indian people are like Chauncey Gardner. They like to see. They like to see. That's why, for example, if you go to George Washington Memorial or Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., who do you see there? You see families, families, little children, latency age, 6, 8, 9, 10, with mother and father, take them there. You see retired people. You see tourists. That is about it. You never see extremely poor and hungry people. You never see lame and handicapped people. You never see people who have traveled, blind people, or a person with amputations traveled from Wisconsin or South Dakota. No, but you go to Taj Mahal in India, you'll see extremely poor people who have no money to eat. They have traveled to see the Taj Mahal. The Indians are into seeing. Darshan is called darshan, D-A-R-S-H-A-N, into seeing. And therefore, as I began to struggle with these attitudes,
Another quotable: Indians are into seeing. You know, Indians are into seeing. We like to see.
it came to me that what may be useful is to have an icon, a visual icon of each of these three attitudes, of survival, of vision, and faith. So you can see the picture. From that you can learn what this idea is. So I'll give you a picture, then I'll tell you the development as to how this thing comes about, and then I'll tell you its technical implications. I cannot tell you how to use it. I'll tell you how it is used. And there's a difference in the two. There's a difference in the two. And you'll see how it has been used by me as against how you should use it. You will see. First, survival. The visual icon of this is a toy which is called Weeble. And that is a toy which is a balloon which has a metallic base. As a result, if you kick it, it goes like this, and comes back again. Now that is the visual icon of survival.
Do you know? Do you guys see Doraemon? Watch Doraemon? So in Doraemon, there's in Japan there is this Daruma doll. Daruma doll. Daruma doll. Something like this. Let me. Okay, I should not do that. It's a semicircular with a head doll, and if you hit it, it goes like this, and then it's come back. So he's talking about Daruma doll. He's calling it a Weeble. Okay.
That means it can be moved, the position can be moved, and position can go away from itself, but it finds itself again. And it kind of recalibrates itself. Those of us who have been mothers and fathers know this very well. That our children bring us joy and pride at every step of the way, but children can also be extremely annoying. And sometimes quite ruthless and obnoxious. Now, in that obnoxious moment, what one feels like is to say something nasty, something cynical, and occasionally slap them. But we don't do this. We somehow bite the bullet, and we find the mommy self and the daddy self all over again. It is that journey from their obnoxiousness which puts us back into a cruel, ruthless, and vindictive mode, and the movement back into finding the mommy and daddy self again. It is that process that is called survival. Yeah? And how does it come into us? It came into us because when we were children, our mothers and fathers survived us. We, in imagination and in reality, attacked our mothers, and somehow they stayed mothers. Those of you young women, for example, if your child says to you, "You are the baddest mother I have, I hate you." Please understand, your child does not know you. He does know shit about you. What does he know about you? He doesn't know anything about you. He doesn't know where you went to college. He doesn't know what books you have read. He doesn't know what movies you like. He doesn't know what's your relationship with your aunt. He doesn't know which countries have you visited. He doesn't know you. He's not talking about you. He's not talking about you when he says, I hate you, you're the worst mommy there is. He's talking about his experience of you as his mommy of this minute. That is not you. That's just one brick in this whole wall that you are. So that awareness has to be kept. And that will help you survive this. So what is the correct answer when the child says, you're the baddest mommy there is, I hate you? What's the correct answer? The correct answer is, you know what? You may hate me, my darling, but I love you. What can I do? Or, oh my God, you're so stuck with a bad mommy. But bad mommy, maybe bad mommy will be good, okay? Something. You stay the mother. You stay the mother. Let the child go this way, this way. My first supervisor, Vamik Volkan, he said to me, I was a baby then, 1974. He said to me, listen, let Tarzan swing on the vine. You be the tree. Because if the tree starts moving with the vine, how would Tarzan get off from the vine? Good point, right? So, that is what we got to do. That's where the person becomes
Psychoanalysts give very weird examples, right? It's very visual examples. You cannot forget these examples.
capable of surviving. First is identification with the mother. That the mother has repeatedly tolerated distortions of the child and attacks of the child and ruthlessness of the child and still stayed a mother. So that's one. Second is a particular game that children play with their father's body. And that is the game of testing his strength and attacking the father. Which the father invites. Father says, come on, hit me. So the child goes like this. Father says, that's all you've got? Come on, hit me harder. So the child goes like this. Hit me on the tummy. Come on, that's all you have. So the child goes like this. From this game, the child learns a very interesting lesson. The child learns, I can hit people and they will not collapse. I can be aggressive, but my aggression is not going to kill people. And just like my father can tolerate my fist on his tummy, I will one day become able to tolerate other people's fist on my tummy. And I would not keel over. These two things, the mother's maintenance of nurturing mode despite ruthless distortions of the child, and the father's lending of his body for physical strength and metabolism of physical aggression. These two things give rise to an internal capacity to identify with parental survival and therefore develop a capacity for survival oneself. Of course, the game of peekaboo adds to it. The child says, I lived, I was able to survive. All this collapses and creates a capacity for survival. Then we go to school and our teachers put up with us, and we drive our analysts and psychotherapists crazy. Every patient knows how to torture his analyst or her analyst. I had some tricks, and I must have driven. I mean, the one who died, he didn't die because of me. Let that be clear. He just developed cancer of colon. That toxic I'm not. I can be annoying, but I'm not that toxic. So, but every patient knows how to torture their analyst. We figure it out. And but the analyst survives. So that identification, then we reveal stupidities and mistakes and outrageousness and ignorances to our supervisors, and they tolerate us. So there's a childhood capacities of survival, and then professional capacities that we identify with role models, and we become stronger bit by bit, and we are able to tolerate and survive our patients' distortions and movements within us. So the clinical example, simple clinical examples. It can be in the aggressive realm, it can be in the erotic realm. Aggressive realm, here's an example. I open the door to a patient and I'm in reasonably peaceful mode, working, nothing too hot or cold inside my heart. I'm reasonably neutral, peaceful. I open the door, patient walks in, looks at me and says, pissed again? Those two words, pissed again. I started feeling so angry. I wasn't angry a minute ago. I was not angry. I was actually quite peaceful. She says, pissed again? And I felt like slapping her. Now, then we have to, that is the moment you're like a weeble kicked, and you've gone like this, now you come back. And you begin to think, why? Why is she wanting me to be angry? What is she doing? What is the purpose of this? What would she get if I get angry? What would happen if I get angry? Who is this person that she thinks I am? And so on and so forth. Right? So by the time you started questioning this, you're already back in the therapeutic mode. You were shifted for a second out of it, and you come back in it. So hopefully you not react and speak when you are out of that mode. You come back and speak from here. The golden rule, which means follow it for 10 years. That's all it means, golden rules. Yeah. The golden rule is, let's suppose your name is Bob Johnson. The golden rule is listen from Bob, speak from Johnson. That's the golden rule. Golden rule. 10 years. 10 years. Listen from Bob.
Listen from Vibhat, reply from Kumar. That's stupid. But the idea, you got the idea, right? You remain the therapist. Don't take it personally.
Bob, speak from Johnson. Meaning you have to receive the material in simple ways and then process it, and then you speak from your informed self. So that is the survival. This is survival of an aggressive moment. Take the example of survival of an erotic moment. I was giving a talk. I'd written a paper called Someday and If Only Fantasies. And the paper was about a kind of undue hopefulness and such, an idealization. But in the paper I was talking about that all human beings have someday fantasy. So by itself, someday fantasy is not abnormal. Someday I'll be a doctor, someday I'll do this, someday I'll do this, someday. That's how we live. That's not in a pathology. It's only when it becomes too demanding, too driving, too depleting of day-to-day life, too sadomasochistic and too narcissistic that it becomes pathological. Anyway, normal someday fantasies all of us have. So as I was giving the talk, I said I have a someday fantasy. And that is and which arises mainly when I have a supervisor in my office and I say, have you read such and such thing? And he says or she says, no, I have not. So I said, let me find the book for you. As I start looking at my bookshelf, that fantasy comes. And the fantasy is that one day these books will be alphabetically arranged. Now I am not obsessional enough or masochistic enough to do it. I'm not sadistic enough to make somebody else do it. And I know even if it is done, it'll be messed up again.
I mean, I am the one who does it daily. I am obsessively I have this compulsion of arranging everything in order. Uh, am I ill or something? I don't know.
So this is actually never going to take place, but this fantasy is good and it helps me, it soothes me, it's nice. The more regrets I get, then they become alphabetically and topic wise and so on and so forth. So I mentioned this. In the audience was one of my patients, a very beautiful woman, very, very beautiful woman. And so next day she comes, lies down on the couch, straightens her hair, and she says, I'm thinking that maybe this Sunday afternoon I can come over to your office and you and I can sit down on the floor and arrange all the books alphabetically. Now this turned me on. Who wouldn't be turned on by this? Who would not be turned on by this? Do you see? Please understand, when a patient says, I want to fuck you, that never turns anybody on. That is orally aggressive and controlling and all kind of coercive. This was a real turn on. The Oedipal transferences do not come naked, so to speak. They come very beautifully dressed up. This was a real, my heart started to pound. This was cool. This was cool stuff. But so you get shifted like this, and you get into an erotic mode, and then you have to come back and say, why this seduction? How come this turned her on so much that she has to turn me on? What did it mean to her? What's she trying to do? And so on and so forth. And the moment you're thinking, you're back into the survival mode. So that's one attitude, survival. Finding your therapeutic self, finding your listening, thinking, and sorting out self again and again and again, and not acting from the impulse-ridden, instinctual, powerful self. When we say instinctual, this 1916 David Rappaport, what it means, cyclical, intense and wanting discharge and finding relief on discharge, right? That's called instinctual. Don't act from instinctual side.
So he mentions two kinds of selves. Okay, two kinds of selves. One is instinctual self, and the other is therapeutic self. So therapeutic self is the Johnson part of Bob Johnson, and the instinctual self may be the Bob. You know, is cyclical. It's wanting discharge. It wants outlet. It wants relief, and it is intense. It is passionate. Never act from the instinctual self. Act always from the therapeutic self. That's what he's saying.
The moment, if it is something that is intense, that's a wanting to be discharged, and that you'll feel some relief after doing this, don't do it. Right? That's precisely the point not to act. And you come back when it becomes optional. Now your ego isn't dominant. Should I? Should I not? Why not? Why? You're back into therapeutic mode. One, survival. Second, vision. Vision, the icon would be there was this orphan, orphans, very significant people. I've recently written a whole paper called Orphans. People, don't like these words. People get afraid of words. Even psychoanalysts get afraid of words. It's so shameful. But we shouldn't be frightened. We should call things as they are. Our surgeon, internist friends are not like that. They tell you, listen, I think your gallbladder needs to come out. They don't say, well, there's a green thing below the liver, which, is kind of round. No, they just say it's a gallbladder. They just say it, right? Same thing. So there was this orphan from Boston. Lo and behold, Polish, father died, 1 year old, 2 year old, mother died, and such. And his name was Korczak Zilkowski. And he knew how to, he was illiterate, but he knew how to make things from his hands. So he made some statues, he made some more statues, and he was discovered by American Indians. There was a big American Indian conference, and some chiefs were going for a walk. They saw one of the statues. They said, this guy is amazing. And they called him, they arranged for him. They said, can you make a statue in the memory of American Indians? He says, where? He says, we have some land in South Dakota. He says, take me there. He went, he saw the mountain. He said, this is the mountain I'll carve. And I'll make the world's biggest statue, near Mount Rushmore, about another 10 miles away. And the statue, he went there, he put 3 conditions. I will work alone, no money from federal government, no money from a state government, only Indian people's money. And I'll make the world's largest statue. And it'll be in the round, so there's not an etching, it's a real statue, larger than Empire State Building. Larger, taller than Empire State Building, with crazy horse, with his finger. My lands are where my dead are buried. Now, this guy, of course, started working, one person, cutting a mountain? Of course not. But he kept working. So he married an American Indian woman and dutifully produced 13 children. And all of them work on the thing. Now the man is dead. People go there, sign and say, it's been going on. It's been now 50, 60 years. And it'll be another 50, 60 years before it'll be done. But he could see the horse in the mountain. He said, this mountain is right to cut into a horse. To be able to see something inside something which still does not explicitly exist, and yet it can be seen. That is the icon. So remember the statue of Crazy Horse.
This is brilliant. This is so therapeutic already. The icon of vision is an icon of the crazy horse carved in a mountain. Brilliant. Brilliant.
South Dakota. I've been there twice. One time of 20 years ago, one time 10 years ago. And they keep all the registers. You go sign, and they see the progress. You take your children, then their children, and such and such. It's an amazing project. So now what happens is that we see this in a young mother whose toddler would not leave the coffee table. He's walking, he's like 11 months old, and he just walks like this. So the mother stands this far, 18 inches or 20 inches, and says, "You can come, it's okay, it's okay." And in that encouragement that you can walk by leaving the table just on your own, she lays down a visual tether, a visual rope of her imagination and her discernment of the internal potentialities of the child, and the child holds that rope and walks. Is when we teach our children how to take off the training wheels from the bicycles, we have a sense that they are ready to do it. They can do it. When our 9th grader comes home and is upset that they'll never pass this exam, we say, "Now, listen, you are upset today, take off, don't read anything, go to sleep, go play with Johnny. You can do it. I know you have it in you. You have it in you." Do you see? That is the thing. In the clinical situation, the whole idea of analyzability, which is like grandma's toaster, frankly. The concept of analyzability is like grandmother's toaster, which means it's old-fashioned, it's dusty, but it can make a toast. Yeah. But it is really, come on. This was slight bullshit, frankly. Slight. And that is that this laid the whole burden on the patient. You are analyzable, you are not. Meaning you bring something with you, you don't bring something with you. What about me? What about me, right? Analyzability depends upon not only the patient. Analyzable by whom? You may be analyzable by me, you may not be analyzable by me. You may be analyzable by somebody else, right? So analyzable by whom was never talked about. I know, I can tell today.
So he means you are analyzable by someone who can see you mentally healthy in the coming days, who has this vision to see you better. I have a question. Can we analyze ourselves if we have the vision that we will one day be better? Just curious. I don't know whether I'll get my answer or not, but I'm okay with curiosity and non-closure, right?
If I go back into analysis, that I know I would be unanalyzable by, I can tell 7 people in American Psychoanalytic Association. They wouldn't get me. They would not get me. And I can tell 6 others who might. In fact, about 4 years ago, I needed some psychotherapy, and it was very problematic who to go to. So I certainly couldn't go to anybody in Philadelphia. Everybody is my friend, and more or less everybody everywhere else. So it was a very
Actually, I am confused where to put myself here.
Problematic thing. And I wanted to see a woman because I had 3 analysts and all 3 men, and I wanted to be in treatment with a woman. So I thought and finally located a woman whom I knew very little. I knew, it was impossible not to know anybody who was senior in the field, and yet knew very little and respected. And I went, and it was dramatically helpful. First of all, just the fact that she was a woman made a difference. So, which taught me another thing. This whole thing about man, woman, same diff. No, I don't think so. I think it makes a profound difference. We don't know that difference. We haven't studied it carefully. But back to analyzability. Analyzability by whom? Analyzability when? Take this example. 23-year-old man, promiscuous man. Not analyzable. I don't think so. He has to have sex with 48 women before he'll become analyzable. That's the number I've come up with. 48 women he needs. Then he'll become analyzable. It's serious. I'm not kidding you.
Just now you said that analyzable by whom is important. So should I say it is better to say that he is not analyzable by you, or in general by all psychotherapists? There are a lot of questions I have to ask this person, but I have no contact. So
it's serious business. You see, you can't analyze a promiscuous young man. It's not going to happen.
I am a promiscuous young man. No, just kidding.
He thinks that women's body is like this. You press A, B, 2, 11, 9, 7, click, open, there'll be a diamond and you'll be rich forever. You will be rich forever, you'll never have to work. You retire, buy a Mercedes, live forever. That's not true. But he cannot get it. He would not get it. He has to sleep with another 48 women before he'll start getting it. You see? A promiscuous man that was an analysis with me said, I've had sex with close to 200 women, but I never found a woman who had 3 breasts. Now, this is a very interesting statement. This is a very interesting statement because it has, I wasn't thinking of talking about this, but
Don't become alarmed. Don't be scandalized. These are patients talking, okay? These are not normal people. These are analyzable, So they are patients. They are in therapy. So they will say things like this, right?
you know but it's a very significant statement because it has multiple levels where you come at and how you listen. What does a 3-breasted woman mean? In Freud it means one thing, in Klein and Winnicott it means another thing. So the analyzability, by whom, when, about what areas of personality, under what circumstances, those kinds of things. But analyzability does involve some vision. Same way termination. Patient says, do you think I'm ready to stop analysis? I think termination is always born in the heart of the analyst first. The analyst can see. I have currently a patient where I think the analysis will end somewhere 2 years from now. I have seen it happen. Like you suddenly become aware that this will end. The patient is not aware. And this idea that it will be 2 years is a defensive, obsessional defense against the anxiety and sudden revelation that a human being cannot handle. Human beings are weak people. They can handle the real shit. This is a real thing. Then comes, so in clinical example, person says analysis coming to an end. And the person says, well, if I run into you after analysis, you will have nothing to do with me because you're no longer my therapist. And, why would you want to do anything with me? Contrary-wise, she also has a fantasy that then you'll sexually seduce me because you're no longer my therapist. So she has 2 fantasies now, one of ignoring, one of impingement, which goes back to her childhood. A real father who abandoned her, a stepfather who sexually abused her. So we reconstruct it, but it doesn't do it anymore. 10 days left in the analysis, and the patient repeatedly saying these 2 things. And you interpret it backwards, it doesn't do anything. Suddenly it hit me, it doesn't need a backward interpretation. It needs a forward interpretation. So I said, actually, I think your anxiety is that you want me to reassure you. I was till yesterday saying that I wouldn't be like the father who abandoned you or like the father who seduced you. I said that I think you want to know from me that if and when I run into you after such and such date, I would not act like as if I'm your analyst, because I wouldn't be. But I would also not forget that I had been your analyst. When I said this, the patient became, now you could feel the movement and the connectedness and empathic understanding. Because I could visualize that anxiety in the future, that needed vision, to see what the person will be anxious at 2 months from now after the analysis ends in October and she's afraid of meeting me, running into me in a meeting in January. What would be her anxiety? Put yourself in her position and then you sense it. It has nothing to do with the childhood father or mother. It has to do with the analyst. And one has to be mental enough to interpret it in reality and in future. So this is vision 2. Third, survival, vision. Third, faith. The best visual icon of faith is that when and if you have gone to a circus, those of you who have children perhaps will go to circus now. Those of you who have grandchildren will perhaps go to circus now. Those of you who have no children and grandchildren went to circus or should go to circus. So now when you go to circus, what happens is you're sitting and nothing is happening and you're getting bored out of your mind. And there is this guy who's walking around near the trapeze and you want him to do something and he's not doing anything. He just walks and you're walking up there. He walks.
Psychoanalysts are themselves like gods. They heal, they help, you know. The last case that he's describing is nothing short of a miracle that, nothing less than a miracle that happened with the women. Imagine what the situation of the women, and we'll find that it was so helpful. Sometimes we want a closure regarding remembrance, We want people to remember us, that once they were related, you know. It's so interesting and so soothing. It's wonderful.
Then he pushes one trapeze with the hand, and you want him to get on it. And ultimately, he gets on it. So he goes, swings, comes back, and then stand again. Then he swings a couple of times, and stands again. He's not doing anything. That's not making you excited. And then he swings, and he sits, comes back again. And one time he swings, and he leaves the trapeze and catches the other trapeze. And you feel thrilled.
He just shifts from the camera panorama, na? So I have to shift myself so that he is visible. It's very weird, but okay.
Now, if you had a camera, which should cost I think about $900, some kind of real thing, a big black thing or something, you know, and you took a picture of this man when he was in the midair. He had left this trapeze and he has not caught the trapeze. That is the man of faith. What was he doing before? I don't know, but I think he was working before with experience and knowledge. He had experience and he had knowledge.
I should stop doing this.
How far the trapeze goes, how much it comes back, what is the movement, experience and knowledge. But when he leaves the trapeze, there's no experience and knowledge. In the moment, when he's in the air, there's only faith.
And faith on what? Faith on the same experience and knowledge. So faith, I don't like Javed Akhtar's argument, the dichotomy that he makes between faith and belief. I think we live by faith. By default, we are wired to live by faith. We live either by faith on God or something, but more so on the faith on common sense, faith on everyday experiences, faith on knowledge, right? The only way to live is to live through faith on something, right? So faith in itself is not bad. Faith is the way of living.
Now, faith in psychoanalysis has received 4 different kinds of attitudes. One from Freud, who basically considered it a fabrication, an evil fabrication, a fabrication that misleads human beings. Human beings should not require faith. They should.
These men, Freud, Marx, to some extent, I don't know, Bertrand Russell. No, not Bertrand Russell. Marx, Freud. These are people of modernity. These are people, true representatives of modernity. Because these people not only represent the good side of modernity, but the obsessive side and the compulsive side of modernity. That they have to criticize uh, everything that cannot be materialized, that cannot be put to reason, that cannot be individualized, and that is subjective. They have to criticize it because they are modern people, modernity, Western modernity. They are the true representative of Western modernity, Karl Marx and Sigmund Freud.
Live in reality. And he also, of course, considered reality and science as something, on one side and faith on the other side, faith and religion on the other side. So for him, faith and reality were opposites of each other. And he thought that religion was basically evolved to compensate for man's narcissistic disturbance, disappointment in father, and continuation of dependency. On most of these counts, in my opinion, Freud was wrong. First, that he said that this is an infantile dependency perpetuated. When we are little children, we want God, father and mother to know everything. When we find out they don't know everything, we say, well, the father up there knows everything. And if you are really
I can really feel Freud thinking that, you know. Freud is such a man who can think that. Hmm. Religion as a narcissistic defense and a premature, attempt, juvenile attempt to remain juvenile and remain a baby, If religion is that, I think everything is that. We want that. We want to remain children in one way or another. And that's not a bad thing. Uh, it's Freud was hyper masculine in many ways.
really grown up, and if you're really able to mourn the fact that nobody knows everything and father and mother don't know everything, you should be able to live, trust science and knowledge, and that is about it, and then live happily ever after. And you should not have this kind of dependent longing. Well, it was easy for a man to say, who had a wife, who had a maid, who had a sister-in-law, who had 6 children and 2 dogs worshipping him every day with 21 cigars. Obviously, he had taken care of all his dependency. If he stopped smoking, and if his wife and children left, and there were no dogs, I would want to see what he said about dependency. So I think this is a problem here. And secondly, this idea that an adult person should have no dependency, that's kind of nonsense. The only difference that happens is children's dependency is give me, give me, give me. Adult dependency is give me, give me, give me, take it, take it, take it. Both is interdependency. Without that, you become Unabomber if you are not connected to human beings. So I think Freud was mistaken. And this whole Freud has this Oedipus thing. Science was she, God was he, and Freud was with she, and he wanted to get rid of he. Come on. Also, the problem happened that he was a Jewish man who had been raised by a Catholic nursemaid. So a hetero religion was inside of him, so that he was a Jewish man, but a Christian trapped in the body of a Jewish man. He needed surgery, So a Christian trapped in the body of a Jewish man. On the other hand, Bjorn was a Christian who was raised by a Hindu woman, an Hindu nursemaid who took him to temples in India.
By the way, Bion, Bion, Bion was another psychoanalyst who came very late to Freud, and he was, as he is describing, a Christian raised by a Hindu.
So he was a Hindu trapped in the body of a Christian. That is the mess that has happened in psychoanalysis. The only people who were in the same religion and religious, because they were living it out, they didn't have to write about it. Winnicott, Fairbairn, Guntrip, and 2 Jews who became Christians, Balint and Kohut. So this middle tradition, independent tradition, where religiosity is inherent, survival of the object is like resurrection of the Christ. New beginning of Balint is like being reborn. All this thing is in the independent middle tradition is inherent, and because they are living it out, they didn't theorize it. And the 2 people who theorized about religion were because their religion was
interesting, isn't it? That people theorize only those things that they are fixated to, that they don't get over, that they cannot let it out. They theorize it,
of not the inside religion and outside belonging were different, therefore they were conflicted. So a big problem happened. Now there are 4 views of faith in psychoanalysis as far as I can understand. One, Freud's, that faith is an infantile fabrication and we should live only with reality. That's one. And in this view, reality can be found by science, and reality is opposed to faith, which is narcissism and omnipotence projected upward. That is faith as fabrication. Second is Erik Erikson's view, which is not really the basic trust of childhood, which happens due to infantile need gratifications, but that something good will happen, the world will be good, I will survive, I'll be taken care of. But this thing, the basic trust, gets projected in future and meets a bifurcation. The conscious hope reflects our wishes. I'll buy a Mercedes, I'll buy a house, I'll become a doctor, and so on and so forth. That's conscious hope. Hope is trust projected in future, but it's conscious hope. The unconscious hope is not about wishes. The unconscious hope is about developmental needs, that there will be people who will help me grow. Life will provide me experiences to learn and grow and become more mature. Life will provide me experiences by which what I couldn't master as a child, I will be able to master. So unconscious hope is about developmental needs. This unconscious hope in the middle age, when Erikson actually becomes, really talks about aspects of wisdom, such as generativity, meaning taking care of the younger generation, and helping the younger generation grow and follow their own dreams, even if those dreams are not one's own dreams. Generativity. Second concept is care, that is being careful, taking care, and giving care, and such. And finally, also belief in the species, learning that there are no two kinds of Homo sapiens. There are only one species. Man is only one species, not two species. There are no black people, white people, no Chinese people, American people, no Palestinians and Israelis. There's only human beings. They're only human beings. And this concept that Erikson has, belief in a species, care, and generativity. These three things, when they get in the realm of unconscious hope, then they create a phenomenon by which a human being comes to a position somewhere, I think, around 60 or so, in which a new thing arises inside the human being, and that is an understanding that the world, not only people, not only mommy and daddy, and not only grown-up people, but the institutions of the world, democracy, justice, poetry, architecture, the institutions of the world, history, literature, and the given nature, mountains, rain, ocean,
Geography.
this will take care not only of me, but of people who are to come. And this idea is of faith. So true faith in Erikson is an earned faith through development and through the flowering of unconscious hope and its dispersal into non-selfish and non-human relationships. So there's a fabricated faith, there's an earned faith. Then in Winnicott, the faith is a given faith. That means parents will give you faith not by teaching and not by modeling, but by not questioning some aspects of yourself and leaving some things alone. So there's a famous sentence of Winnicott that there's a gentlemanly agreement between the parents and the child that they shall never ask, why do you love this blanket so much? Or there's a gentlemanly agreement between the parents and the child that they will never ask, did somebody give you this blanket or did you find it? These questions are not to be asked. Now here's also a difference between Jewish.
My brother, when he was a little child, he used to carry a black blanket, small black blanket. Everywhere he went to, हमारे घर गया, वहां पे भी उसके पास था, वो सोता था उसी के साथ, उठता था, बैठता था उसी के साथ. He has this obsession, say it addiction, say it devotion to that blanket, and he used to call it Pila wala chadar. It was black in color, by the way, but he used to call it Pila wala chadar. You understand, there was a gentlemanly agreement between us and him that we will never ask, why do you call it Pila wala chadar? And why do you keep it? Who gave it to you? Did you find it? No. We respected that he wants it and we'll let it be with him. Today he is in IIT Kanpur. And I believe that it has to do something with that. Us not disturbing his faith made him stronger enough, intelligent enough to reach IIT Kanpur.
And Christian psychoanalysis. There is such a thing. It's a politically kind of risque thing to say, but there is such a thing. That in Jewish psychoanalysis, which is the classical analysis, regardless of Anna Freud or Melanie Klein, there are differences in the intensities. It's like Budweiser and Bud Light. So I mean, but it's the same beer. It's the same beer. Yeah. It's the same beer, the classical people, meaning there's something drive, something pushing you from inside, you're defending against it, there's something hidden, let's find that out, and those kinds of things. So these are people who believe that
Yeah, actually, he's right. Freud, it is sexual urge, sexual desire, libido. In Adler, it's aggression, dominance, and so on. In Carl Jung, it's something unconscious, collective unconscious. So yeah.
everything can be said, should be said, will be said, must be said, and if it's not said, then you have to tell me why it is not said. And when you have exhausted those things, then you will tell me what is not said. And when you tell me what that is said, we'll find out that that is not what was not said, but there was something else that was actually going to be said. And then we will talk about that thing. And then we'll talk about why we
Uh, do anyone understood that train of thought? What happened?
should be said, will be said, must be said. And if it's not said, then you have to tell me why it is not said. And when you have exhausted those things, then you will tell me what is not said. And when you tell me what that is said, we'll find out that that is not what was not said, but there was something else that was actually going to be said. And then we will talk about that thing. And then we'll talk about why we were talking about all this, right? So that is one kind of psychoanalysis. That is Anna Freud and Melanie Klein, classical school. But in Winnicott, Guntrip, Masood Khan, Christopher Bolus, all these people, there is enormous respect for the idea that some things cannot be said. Something cannot be said, must not be said. And if they are said, they are not those things. The moment they are said, they are not those things. Take one small example. Winnicott's concept of true self. Now, let's suppose I come to you in psychotherapy, and I say to you, Dr. Stavros, you know me, I've written some books, and I'm a psychoanalyst, and I can speak, I can write, and I think I'm kind of cute and funny. But the fact is, this is all a lie. This is all a pretense. This is all fabricated structure around me. I'm basically a little brown little boy from India who likes to eat rice with hand and talk in Urdu. That's what basically I am. This whole American person wearing a tie, talking in English, this is bullshit. This is not me. Please understand, I now address to young people. This is what I have just said has nothing to do with true self or false self. This kind
Wonderful, wonderful. Why? Why? Because this is coming from a defense. You can really see the impulse in the statement. You can see that this is not coming from a state of realization. It is coming from a state of nostalgia bias. It is coming from a state of defense, against something. You want something bad has happened to you in your present situation. You want a regression to the past. And that's why you are saying this, right? Because till now you were okay with being an American, psychotherapist, wearing a tie and doing something, and suddenly you want to speak in Urdu and have rice with your hands and so on, So that is
of a statement has nothing, zero, to do with true self or false self. This is not what Winnicott is talking about. This is nothing, zero. Never ever believe this kind of talk. Do you see? This is not what Winnicott had in mind when he's talking about true self and false self. These are fantasies created for various purposes. These are defensive regressions from realistic authenticity. These are all kind of retrospective idealizations of the self. These are not related to true self and false self. The statement I just made. No. True self has no content. Listen to me. True self has no content. There's no such thing as true self. That's why Winnicott says that I can describe false self, but true self cannot be described. Because it's in the essence of living. Right? So that now, suppose you're eating an apple, and you bite an apple, and you're not thinking, it's good that I'm eating an apple, that I'm not eating meat, or it's how good my health will become, or my mother will be happy, or oh, is this apple a forbidden fruit? Am I identified with Adam? And so on and so forth. If you're not thinking, if you're just eating a goddamn apple, that's called true self. That's called true self. Do you see? When you watch.
If you guys know stand-up comedy, अभिषेक उपमन्यु को अगर आपने देखा होगा तो उसके एक सेट में वो कहता है कि मेरा एक दोस्त है जो हर मोमेंट के बीच में बोलता रहता है कि खुशी के पल, दोस्ती के पल, खुशनुमा ऐसा. So that is where he is being fake. He is not true in his true self. A person who is in true self doesn't do a running commentary in his head or with his mouth that is what is going on. I am feeling happy today. A happy person will not say this. A happy person will not say, oh my god, I'm so happy today. No, he is just happy. He doesn't need to assert it, right? Similarly, if someone says, oh, khushi ke pal, no, you are defending it. You're sad about something. तुम इतना जो मुस्कुरा रहे हो, क्या गम है जिसको छुपा रहे हो? कैफियाज भी, yeah, right.
And you came and you sat down, that was called true self. That's why Winnicott says true self cannot be described, because true self is in the essence of psychosomatic going on being. It cannot be described. The moment you describe it, it's become false self. Now, this has powerful implications. That because the parents let the true self be, that's why it could be. If the parents had questioned it and labeled it, it would have become false self. Right. Therefore, in Winnicott, in Freud, faith is a fabrication. In Erikson, faith is a developmental epoch. In Winnicott, it's a gentlemanly gift of parents. Just by letting you be, you will have faith, meaning you would know that there is something in you and there's something in this world and you are going on. Do you see? Take the small thing, think about it. I'm born in India. When 0 to 26 I was living in India. Was I living in India? No, I was just living. I'm now living in the United States. That's a different thing.
When एक अच्छा एग्जांपल देता हूँ. जब आप घर पे रहते हैं, जब आप बचपन से पैदा होने के साथ घर पे रह रहे थे, तो आप घर पे रह रहे थे? नहीं, आप बस रह रहे थे. पर जैसे ही आप हॉस्टल गए, अब आप हॉस्टल में रहते हैं. और फिर जब आप रिटर्न आएंगे तो आप घर में वापस नहीं आएंगे, आप रहेंगे नहीं, आप घर में रहेंगे. राइट? नाउ इट becomes a projected identification कि ये मेरा घर है. पहले आप रह रहे थे, आपको बोलने की जरूरत नहीं थी, आपको समझने की जरूरत नहीं थी कि ये घर है. अब आपको जरूरत पड़ेगी समझने की, बिकॉज कभी कभी आप यहाँ नहीं भी रहते हो. राइट?
Living in United States and living like you, I assume, are born in USA. You're not living in, okay, let's assume. Excuse me. There goes the art of talking to the audience. So do you see that if you're born in USA, you're born in USA, please be born in USA. Yeah. Now you are not living in America.
She literally got offended. She said, "No, I'm not born in USA. Okay, I'm a decent person. Okay, I'm born in Mexico. I'm born in Latin America. I'm an Asian woman."
No, you're just living. Or for example, when you talk, when you're talking, you're not talking in English.
You're just talking.
You're speaking. When I'm speaking in English. Those are two different things. They're not the same things.
When you're talking in your mother tongue, you're not talking in your mother tongue. You're talking because that's how you think. You don't need to describe yourself that you're talking in Hindi, but you're talking in English. Right now, I'm talking in English. Now, I am talking in a foreign language. And I have to remind myself, otherwise I'll do some mistake in talking. This is false self. What was true self? Mother tongue.
That is what Winnicott's true self is. That's what Winnicottian faith is. The faith arises from this smooth confluence between the figure and ground that is left unquestioned. And because of its being unquestioned, it creates an area of strength, of ongoingness. and therefore a grasp on the world and on the nature, and a sense that nature belongs to one and one belongs to the nature. 3. Fabricated faith, earned faith,
So
given
given
faith.
faith.
And then there's Bion. Bion was a little boy born in India. He was maverick, strange, schizo.
Just to say, Beyond is one of my favorite people. I know very less about Beyond, but the one concept that I know in this talk only I got to know, and that's why Beyond became my all-time favorite. My God, this idea is so wonderful.
Schizoid, weird, and a genius. And then there's Bion. Bion was a little boy born in India. He was maverick, strange, schizoid, weird, and a genius. None of them was caused by his being grown up in India. Actually, his being leaving India may have caused his weirdness. Because at age 8, the father came home. This boy needs to go to a good school. There's no good school in India. Send him to England. At age 8, father, mother, and younger sister remained in India. This boy was sent to England. Didn't see his mother and father till age 17. 9 years living in a little boy in dorms. That should do it. And then, of course, Bion was the only psychoanalyst in the world who was in combat, in real war, and saw people getting killed. One person's brain fell on his face, some such thing. So, I mean, he had interesting experiences. He never went back to India. He went this way. He went from England, he came to New York, Los Angeles, then he went to Argentina. He never went to India. And
I wonder why. I wonder why. I wonder why he never went back to India.
there's a guy, Rafael Lopez Carbo, who's in Toronto. I found out, I thought he was in Argentina. He's not, he's an Argentinian, but in Toronto. Bion has a concept called, I'll come back to Lopez Carbo. Bion has a concept called O. Now, by O, he means the ever-present, self-evident, absolute truth. In
बताओ ये जीनियस है कि नहीं? ये जीनियस है. ये जीनियस है. मैं ऑलरेडी देख सकता हूं कि ये जीनियस है. Ever present, self-evident truth.
Evident, absolute truth. In Bion's thinking, truth is already present. It's already there. 100% truth is already there. You don't have to make it up. It's already there. And it's everywhere. So how can you get to it? Unlike all other psychoanalysts, Bion proposes that thoughts cannot be produced by thinking. In fact, thoughts are already there.
बताओ मुझे. बताओ ये जादू नहीं है तो क्या? ये this is wonderful. Thoughts cannot be produced by thinking. Thoughts are already present. There's nothing as such as invention. Everything is but a discovery and a rediscovery. Brilliant, brilliant. What do I call it? This is such a brilliant statement.
Thinking can be done in response to thoughts. Thoughts can produce thinking, but thinking cannot produce thoughts. Thoughts are nouns like tree, house, cat. Thoughts already exist and exist before the mind, which is what is spooky about him. That's what happens when you come from India. So, he was a little boy. Freud was a little Jewish boy being carried to Catholic Church. Music, hymns. He used to come, stand, put cardboard boxes, Freud, and stand up at age 5, say there are 3 gods, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. His father got really pissed off. He had Christianity inside of him from which he struggled all his life. He adored Oscar Pfister, much younger, 20 years younger than Freud. He adored him. And he wrote letters in which he says, due to the mercy of the Lord, Martha has fallen in love with me. Due to the divine intervention, I've gotten accepted in medical school. Due to, the Akhtar Pfister is a man of the Lord. He's taking us to divine heaven, kingdom, and I'm merrily following him, and so on and so forth. Bion, on the other hand, was a Hindu inside and Christian outside. So this Hinduism, this going to temples in villages of Punjab with his Hindu nursemaid, made him hear the main and fundamental basic sound of Hindu chanting. Om. He cut the M out. Because the moment you put the M, there's a separation. The sound ends. And he did not want to be separated from that woman and from India. So the concept became O, round like a breast and unending. Conflict free, round like a breast, conflict free, unending sound. So independently, now Neville Symington and I have completely different interpretations of the word O. Raphael Lepose Corvo, who has written an entire book on Bion, he and I independently come to the same conclusion, and that is this O comes from India. Raphael Lepose Corvo says that once Bion entered a meeting like this, standing at the back row, the meeting was not of psychoanalysis. In Argentina, somebody was giving a talk about Mahabharata, which is an old, 4,000 years old book in India. And Bion enters and he's stand there transfixed and starts crying. He's 70, 75 years old by that time. So India was alive inside of him. And this O concept, ever present, omnipotent, absolute truth, which is already existing. So how to find?
He starts crying, dude. Such as an effect of the childhood experiences and how melodious and how sweet was his childhood experiences as experiencing Hinduism, that after such a long time he hears about Mahabharata and he starts crying. This is wonderful, isn't it?
Find it, because thinking will not produce it. So Bion comes to an amazing conclusion. The only way to find the truth is to stop thinking, to not think. Now, if you remember the scene, those of you who have seen this movie, my brother, who is a successful, very powerful film producer in Bollywood, he doesn't think it's even a
He's talking about Javed sir.
movie, but that's his problem. I have seen this movie 10 times, sometimes laughed, sometimes cried, called My Dinner with Andre. Now, in that, there's a dialogue, two people talking, just having dinner. So one of them says, why is it we have to go to India or Nepal or Tibet to see God? Is there no God in Manhattan? And the guy gives a very good answer. The guy says, yes, Wally, there is God in Manhattan. But the problem is that we are too busy to see him. In Manhattan, we are too busy. So we have to go to some place to be unbusy. Now, this is what Bion is talking about. Thought will not be produced by thinking. In fact, thinking will mess up thoughts. Not thinking. I have had about 10 good thoughts in my life, which is not bad, and I'm getting them more now. And all of them have occurred either in the shower or driving alone without a cell phone and no radio on. Only then. It'll catch you. So, to give you a concrete example, Oedipus complex. Was there no Oedipus complex before Freud or before Sophocles? I mean, before Sophocles, there was no such thing as Oedipus complex. Before the word Oedipus was known, there was no Oedipus complex. What nonsense! Of course there was. Only Sophocles and Freud caught it. How long has E is equal to B in MC square? How long has E is equal to B in MC square? Simply because Einstein enunciated it? Does that mean that it was not true before? It was true before. It was true forever. Which leads to a very, very weird idea. And that is, there is no such thing in this world as invention. Everything is a discovery. This is beyond, and therefore spooky, very spooky. Now the trapeze artist. So when you come back to the clinical situation, what happens? You're listening to a patient. Bjorn has a phrase called the act of faith. There are times that the analyst performs or is made to perform an act of faith, where you leave all experience and all knowledge behind. And in fact, it is wrong, I think, to say you leave it. That moment makes you leave it. A patient of mine who was a very lonely person had led a life of abject aloneness, and despite education and financial resources, lived in a life of very severe self-deprivation. Then around mid-40s, she had an affair with a married man and came alive. And the affair was good for her. She was single, the man was married, and the affair was extremely limited, very tightly circumscribed, in the sense that he will come to her apartment, they'll have sex, they'll play some card games, blah, 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 and various kinds of chess they played and all kinds of things, and then the man will leave 2 or 3 times a week. And this went on for about a year and a half or 2 years. And it made her so happy and so alive. She did not want anything more. He did not give her anything more. One day the man disappeared, couldn't be found. She became suicidal. That's how she came to see me. As we worked twice a week face to face, some years, year and a half or 2 years down the road, she got a bird. She was a very lonely person. So she got a bird as a pet and became extremely attached to the bird. And the bird, whose name was Dino, was constantly in the session and constantly being talked about with great subjectivity and fine nuances of thoughts attributed to the bird, which I never interpreted and questioned. It was not necessary. It would have only showed that I was clever. And that's not the purpose of psychotherapy. That is the purpose when you're beginning. That is the purpose. But that's not the purpose of psychotherapy. So now this went on. One day the bird died. The bird died. She could not get rid of the bird's body, so she put it in the fridge. Now, again, I found a part of me, which was an old part, that I would have felt it a great trophy, therapeutic trophy, to have gotten rid of that bird in the fridge. I would have felt what a good doctor, psychotherapist I am if she threw away that bird from the fridge. I could reminisce that part. I was not in that part anymore. I knew that it doesn't matter. First of all, I suppose all the people in this room have a dead bird in the fridge. Chicken, turkey. Yeah. Simply because you have not killed it, that doesn't mean it is not dead. And simply because the feathers have been taken off, that doesn't mean it's not dead. So don't worry about it. We are not refrigerator repair people. I'm not a Maytag man. I'm a psychoanalyst. What do I care what people put in their fridge? Who gives a damn? So now the important thing was not the bird in the fridge, but the frozen grief. As we are talking, one day the patient says the following. The patient says, yesterday I went back from work and I went to my apartment and I was sitting near the window looking down, and suddenly from the corner of my eye I saw a spider. And I saw a spider, and the spider was very dark, black spider, beautiful. And a thought occurred to me. Now please also understand the patient is not Indian. I want you to know this because of what she's about to say. Patient is not Indian, patient is not Hindu, patient is American, Jewish. Patient says, a thought occurred to me that maybe Dino has become transformed and has reincarnated as this spider and come to meet me. But obviously there's no such things.
She mentions reincarnation, and wow, human beings are mysterious creatures.
There's no such thing as reincarnation, and there's no such thing. She's not looking at me, she's looking like this, away from me. There's no such thing as reincarnation, and there's no such thing as birds becoming spiders. It can't happen, but who knows? Maybe it can happen.
See how the image is. She's not looking at him. When you look at someone, it is your thoughts that you say. But sometimes when you don't look at people, the things that you say are actually the social conditioning and the things that you are made to believe, but you don't really want to believe. you're not convinced. You're like, yeah, I know it is logical, yeah, this, that, but I really want the spider to be my old bird. I really want God to exist. I really want this. Psychoanalysis is an extremely empathetic discipline. I really want, I mean, I really wish I can pursue it someday professionally, but unfortunately I cannot. But I can definitely learn something from this old man. Uh, yeah,
Then she looks at me, she says, "You don't think I'm crazy, do you?" I said, "No, I don't think you're crazy at all. In fact, I think this spider is a poem." Now, when I said this sentence, I didn't know what it meant. I did not know. And
he said, maybe the spider is a poem. It's already a poem actually. It became a poem the moment you said it is a poem, right?
if I have to be absolutely honest, the correct way of saying is I didn't say the sentence. The sentence was said by me. You know, you cannot do these kinds of things. You know, I didn't say it. It was said by me. The spider is a poem. When I said this, the patient now is looking at me. Her eyes began to shine. She broke into a big grin, was extremely happy, but it lasted like 5 seconds and disappeared. And then she says, "What do you mean?" So I said, "Look, when I said this, you knew what I meant instinctively and immediately. But you are a very self-destructive person and self-hating person. So that understanding of your own, you could not tolerate that you were smart and connected with me and knowledgeable, and you destroyed it. So now, if you want, I will try to think what I meant and try to tell you and try to find the meanings of it inside of myself and between us. Or you can do that. What do you think?" And then the session went on. But the point is that this comment, that the spider is a poem, is precisely what Bjorn says is an act of faith. Because it is visible to you. It is the truth of the moment. Right?
Truth of the
It is
moment.
E is equal to mc square.
It
It
is
is
F equal
there
to MC.
forever. The spider was always a poem. Now, obviously,
Spider was
one
always a
can
poem.
go back and deconstruct it, and hundreds of meanings will come, why I was able to say this. But that was not the thing. You see, it's like when if you're watching football, which incidentally the Eagles game is going on, it's terrible. You put me in a bad time on this speaking. So now what happens is that when the quarterback is running, yeah, and the guy upstairs, actually John Madden, I miss him. John Madden is speaking. He is saying Wick is doing this and this and this. Vic is not doing this and this. He's saving his ass. He's saving his ass and he's running as fast as possible. That's all he's doing. Right? That's all he's doing. So the theory is in his body. The theory is not in his mind. It's the implicit memory, not a discursive memory. So when it was said by me, in that moment it was an act of faith. Now we can go and retrospectively analyze how come I was able to say this. And I have thought about it. And there are many, many other examples. This doesn't happen every day. This doesn't happen every day. These moments, the person you have to read about this kind of thing, just the way an internal passivity is also necessary, just the way activity is necessary. Both things are necessary in doing psychotherapy. Psychotherapy is a fantastic mixture of deliberateness and spontaneity. And we need both things. And in that thing, we move back and forth. But it is the spontaneous moment in which you have left experience and knowledge behind. And you left the trapeze of experience and knowledge before you catch the second trapeze. You are in that moment a man of faith. And these three qualities, survival, vision, and faith, are essential not only for being a therapist, but being a parent, being a mother or a father, and being a friend, and just living in general. So that's what I've come to conclude about it. Had I not read Charlotte's Web to my son, when he was a little boy? Would I be able to get this spider thing? Had I not been in love with Holland and gone to a little town called Barn, where Edward M.C. Escher was born and raised, and visited his house, would I be able to see the transformation of a bird into a spider? We don't know. But these are John Madden's speculation. And when we are doing psychoanalysis and psychotherapy, we may be John Madden at times, but mostly we are Michael Vick. Thank you very much.
Yes. So coming back to our question, why I am no longer an atheist? I will give you the same answer Dr. Salman Akhtar gave to the patient. When Salman Akhtar said that maybe the spider is a poem, for 5 seconds, spontaneously, she smiled. And then she stopped smiling. She asks, "What do you mean?" Then Dr. Salman says, "You already know what I mean, but you're a very self destructive person. You do not think you are intelligent enough to understand this, and then you complicate this matter. And I can go on and explain, but I think you understood it instinctively and immediately." The same answer I'll give it to you why I am no longer an atheist. I think you also immediately and instinctively understand this. Survival, vision, and faith. I have a survival instinct that makes me believe in God. I don't care if God is or is not. I want Him to be. I want Him to be. It is not about is or is not anymore. I want Him to be. For me, for anyone who is struggling. I have this vision. I can see amid nothingness something. I have this vision instinct that I can see God when there is no God. I want to see Him. And then there is faith, the fundamental quotient with which human beings live. I believe in God because I want to believe in God. No reason, no rationality, nothing. You don't believe in God because you don't want to believe in God. It is a conscious decision, but realize that it is more than a conscious decision. It is a subconscious decision. When I was an atheist, I found my subconscious rebelling against it and some impulsive responses coming out. And that's why I listen to my subconscious. I will not say that I'm a religious person. I'll say I'm a dharmic person, a dharmic, ambivalent person. Dharmic in the sense I believe that there is a universal harmony and there is an order in all of this, an organizational principle called dharma, because I have a faith hunger. I want to believe in dharma. And I am ambivalent because I'm open to possibilities. I don't care if God exists or not. And at this point, I am not bothered by this question of whether God exists or not. The institutions of religion, I criticize them. I will keep on criticizing them. Wherever I will see andhavishwas, I'll criticize it. I'll not believe in anything stupid. But I will not be cruel to myself by rebelling against my subconscious because now I am mature enough to listen to my inner voice. Right? That's all. That's why I'm no longer an atheist. Give love to the girl who gave us the beautiful bhajan, Ram ko dekhkar Shri Janak Nandini. And we learned a lot from this talk, Master Theologians in Dialogue by Dr. Salman Akhtar. And I say goodbye to you. right? But I don't know how to close it. Yeah.